Welcome to Life Stories, where a single key, used without permission, unlocks years of buried pain and triggers a decision that will leave an entire family reeling. She worked her whole life to build something of her own, but when her success became just another prop in her family's perfect image, she did something no one saw coming. This isn't just a story about a house, it's about identity, boundaries, and what happens when you stop asking for permission to exist. Stay with us, because what unfolds is a quiet rebellion, a brutal awakening, and a bittersweet freedom that comes at a cost. Let's step inside the house, where everything begins and ends. The envelope was thick, cream-colored, and embossed in gold, the kind of indulgent paper that whispered generational wealth. It looked out of place on my concrete kitchen counter, next to an unfinished sketch and a chipped espresso cup. I already knew what it was. What I didn't know was that it would carry my own address inside. My name is Madison Whitmore. I'm the daughter my parents pretend not to have when speaking at their country club fundraisers. The one who chose design over law, substance over spectacle. The one who dared to build something without their money or permission. The invitation was for my younger sister Aubrey's engagement party. She was marrying Chase Whitman, the golden boy of California real estate dynasties. And apparently, the venue was none other than my home in Silver Heights, the one I bought, renovated, and poured my soul into. The call came less than an hour later. "Darling, we simply had to use your house." My mother's voice crackled through the speaker with the softness of a silk glove and the edge of a scalpel. "It's perfect for Aubrey's big day. The architecture, the windows, the view, everyone's dying to see inside since your father mentioned it at the charity gala." I stared out those very windows, the skyline framed like a living painting behind my carefully chosen linen drapes. "Mom," I said, measured and calm like I was speaking to a difficult client. "This isn't a family property. I bought this house, with my own money, from my own business." "Oh, don't start with that again." She exhaled like I was exhausting. "We're all family here. Families share. Besides, Aubrey already told her friends. You wouldn't want to embarrass her, would you?" There it was, the dagger wrapped in a ribbon, the emotional sleight of hand, guilt disguised as grace. "When were you going to ask me?" I didn't say it out loud. There was no point. Because they never asked, they just assumed, took, decorated my sacrifices with flowers, and called it love. "She's with the florist right now," my mom continued breezily. "She's thinking white roses everywhere. Oh, and we'll need you to move that dreadful abstract painting in your living room, the red one. It won't photograph well, and maybe rearrange the furniture for the caterers." I looked at the painting. I remembered the day I bought it, my first big client, a tech startup in Venice Beach. The artist, a local woman who had rebuilt her life after surviving a violent marriage, had painted bold red strokes that felt like defiance and rebirth. I had stood in front of it for hours that night, wine glass in hand, feeling seen. "You can't just—" "I've already given the party planner the spare key," she said. "The one you left with us. She'll stop by this week to take measurements. Oh, and about the guest list." I hung up. Or maybe I didn't. Maybe I just stopped listening. In that moment, I understood something cold and brutal. This was never about celebrating Aubrey. It was about reminding me that no matter how hard I worked, how far I climbed, they still believed they owned me. I called Brooke. "They're doing it again," I said, holding up the invitation on FaceTime. "Except this time they're not even pretending it's a request." Brooke's eyebrows arched like weaponry. "Tell me, you're not letting them." I hesitated. "Madison, you fought to build that life. They don't get to claim it because it's convenient for their narrative." My throat tightened. They've already sent the invites, already planning the flower walls and catering routes, and my mother, she used my spare key. "Then change the locks," Brooke said flatly. "Better yet, change the address." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was electric. A decision waiting to be made. I turned toward my laptop, opened a browser and typed, "Top real estate agents near me." The next morning I walked through my house with a different kind of gaze. Not as a designer, not as a daughter, as a strategist. Every room held memories, not the good kind, not the kind you frame. The kind where your mother critiques your kitchen layout at Christmas. The kind where your father jokes at dinner about how he could pull strings to get you a real job. The kind where your sister laughs at your single-woman furniture in front of her fiancé. In the dining room, I ran my fingers along the table. My mother's voice echoed in my memory, praising my latest client not out of pride, but out of pride by proxy. We always knew she'd do well, even with her creative choices. They didn't want me. They wanted the reflection of me, the version they could show off. So I called Dean Russell. I showed him the listing photos. I showed him my portfolio. I showed him the invitation with my address printed in gold. I need this house sold, I said, before that party happens. He studied the invitation like it was a blueprint to a scandal. Fast, quiet, and no loose ends. Exactly. A few hours later, I was back at my kitchen island, where the cream-colored envelope still sat. My phone buzzed again. Can you move your mirror in the powder room? The lighting's awful for photos. I didn't reply. Mom, make sure you're home Thursday. The caterers are stopping by. I didn't reply. Dad, don't embarrass the family. I replied. I won't. Then I walked to the hallway closet and pulled out the box labeled documents, mortgage papers, receipts, ownership proof, everything they'd never asked about because they never wanted to know how I did it alone. Dean moved fast. By Friday, we had private offers lined up. On Sunday, I signed the papers, and on Monday, I left the spare key right where they expected it, under the porch planter. But I changed the locks. The party was scheduled for Saturday at 4 p.m. At 3:47, I sat at a rooftop cafe in downtown Los Angeles, latte in hand, watching the live feed from my security app. My mother arrived first. Red dress. Perfect smile. She reached for the planter, pulled out the key. It didn't turn. The smile cracked. What happens when a woman finally chooses herself, after years of being everyone else's backdrop? Would you have the courage to burn the stage they built for your silence? The first scream didn't come from inside the house. It came from the sidewalk, when the sold sign fell over in the wind. My phone vibrated so hard it nearly skidded across the table. I silenced it with a flick of my finger and looked back at the live feed. The camera showed a crowd building on the sidewalk in front of my former house. My house. My memory of it, crafted over years, room by room, was unraveling in real time into a spectacle they couldn't control. Dean slid a glass of wine in front of me. You okay? I nodded, then shook my head. I don't know. Shouldn't I feel more triumphant? You just pulled off a masterclass in silent rebellion. Give it a second to land. I laughed softly, but it didn't reach my chest. The truth was, it had landed. That was the problem. The house was gone, not just the building but the symbol. The proof that I had made something beautiful without their help. I'd always told myself I didn't need their approval, only space to breathe. But now that space belonged to someone else. I had willingly severed it from myself. My mother had begun knocking, hard. I zoomed in. She wasn't just knocking, she was pounding, the polite mask slipping off inch by inch. She always hated locked doors, I murmured. Dean raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I sipped my wine and stared past the skyline, into something older. When I was 13, I said quietly, I locked myself in the bathroom during a family dinner. Aubrey had made some joke about how I'd never get a boyfriend with a face like that, and everyone laughed, even my dad. I remember gripping the sink until my knuckles went white. Dean said nothing, just listened. That's why I liked him. My mom screamed from the hallway, told me to come out and stop making a scene. I stayed in there for 2 hours. When I finally came out, she didn't ask if I was okay. She said, if you want people to love you, you have to be easier to love. A long pause, and for years, I believed her. The phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't my parents. It was a voicemail from Chase. Curious, I played it on speaker. Hey Madison, I know I shouldn't be calling, but I need to talk to someone who isn't pretending everything's fine. Look, I think I'm starting to see what you meant. About all of it. About them. I'm not even sure this wedding is about me and Aubrey anymore. I don't know what to do. Call me if you can. I stared at the phone like it had transformed. Dean leaned forward. Did he just say that? Apparently. Well, that complicates things. It always does. But deep down I felt it. A tremor I didn't expect. Guilt, maybe, or something more fragile. Recognition. For a long time I thought I was the only one suffocating under the weight of expectations wrapped in love. What if Chase was drowning too? Before I could unpack that thought, a new message came through. This one from Brooke. Brooke, Madison. Call me. It's about Dad. I froze. It was like hearing a ghost whisper your name. My hands went cold. I called her immediately. She picked up on the first ring. It's not what you think, she said quickly. He's okay, physically. What happened? He saw the video, she said. The footage from the party, it's everywhere, and someone leaked your email to your parents, the one you sent after the sale. I closed my eyes. The video, the letter, the truth, they're spinning it, she said. Your mom's claiming you're having a breakdown, that this was all some kind of emotional spiral. And your dad, he's threatening to have you removed from the family trust unless you issue a public apology. I laughed then. A sharp, brittle sound. They always need a villain, I said. They just never expected I'd stop playing mine. But Madison, Brooke said softly, they've started reaching out to clients, to your clients, subtly, quietly, planting seeds. And there it was, the real blow. They weren't just angry. They were retaliating. They were trying to burn the thing I built, the one thing they never thought I could do without them. Dean watched me process it in silence, his expression unreadable. You okay? He asked again. No, I said truthfully, but I'm ready. I stared out over the city, heart thudding with something new, not fear, not sadness. Resolve. I stood, pulling on my jacket. I need to go. Where? To see my lawyer. Dean looked impressed. You're not going to respond publicly. I already did, I said, with a signature and a closing date. But I'm not just walking away now, not when they're trying to dismantle me from the inside. As I stepped into the night, the city buzzing around me, one thought settled hard in my chest. They taught me how to fight quite quietly, how to use charm like a blade. But they forgot the most important lesson. I was watching them too. When your family tries to destroy what you've built, do you fight fire with fire? Or walk away before you become the thing you feared? Because in the next chapter, Madison isn't just protecting her name, she's reclaiming her legacy. The morning light in Echo Park was softer than the sun that had poured through my old Silver Heights windows. It didn't blaze. It lingered, golden and cautious, like it wasn't quite sure if it was welcome yet. I stood barefoot in the middle of my new living room, coffee in one hand, silence in the other. The air still smelled faintly of plaster and old wallpaper glue, sense of transformation, not of loss. The Victorian wasn't perfect. The stairs creaked, the walls bore the ghosts of a dozen paint jobs, and the kitchen cabinets needed a crowbar to open. But it was mine, fully, freely, without apology, and after weeks of war, that meant everything. The footage from the engagement party had stopped trending. The buzz faded into the next scandal, someone's leaked divorce, a celebrity's cheating confession. People moved on, but my family didn't. They'd made their position clear in voicemails, statements, and most recently, a cease and desist letter, an attempt to silence the narrative they no longer controlled. But I'd already said what I needed to say, and so had the world. For every hate message, I received 5 from strangers who had finally stood up to the people who claimed to love them but loved control more. They called it inspiring, brave, unimaginable. But the truth? It hurt like hell. There were nights when I stared at my ceiling and wondered if I'd gone too far. If maybe, just maybe, I should have let them have one more thing, one more room, one more chance. And then I'd remember the feeling of my mother unlocking a door that wasn't hers. My phone buzzed, snapping me back. A text from Brooke. Thought you should know. Mom's latest post is about forgiveness. She says she's leaving the door open for reconciliation. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I walked to the bay window, looking out at a street lined with dog walkers and vintage bicycles and neighbors who nodded but didn't ask questions. No charity committee meetings. No wine tastings for causes no one remembered. Just people living their lives, not performing them. Brooke had been checking in more lately. Something had shifted in her. Maybe it was watching the spectacle unfold from the sidelines, or maybe Like Chase, she was beginning to see that the empire our parents built was beautiful only from a distance. Up close it left bruises. Speaking of Chase, he hadn't called again. Not since that voicemail. Maybe he knew better than to ask for more. Or maybe he was too deep inside the machine to find a way out. I didn't blame him. Some people stay because it's safe. Some people leave because they finally learned that love without respect isn't love at all. Dean arrived that afternoon with takeout and a bottle of wine. We ate on the floor because the furniture hadn't arrived yet, surrounded by bare walls and blue painter's tape. "You still thinking about the letter?" he asked between bites. "Not really." But he knew better. "I could draft a response," he offered. "Something professional, legal." I shook my head. "No need. The silence is louder." He looked at me for a long moment. "You know, most people would have burned out after all that. But here you are, still building." "I've had practice." After dinner, we walked through the house, room by room, mapping ideas with post-its and laughter. He asked questions. I gave answers. We imagined skylights, reclaimed floors, secret reading nooks. In the upstairs hallway, I paused in front of the smallest room. "This one," I said, "was probably a nursery once." He leaned against the doorframe. "What will it be now?" I didn't answer right away. I traced the outline of the window with my fingers. "I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything." He didn't press. Just nodded, like he understood that some rooms take time to name. That night, after Dean left, I sat by the window with my laptop and opened the draft of my video series. Reclaiming space. It wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about all the spaces we give away without realizing it. Our time, our voice, our worth. About what it takes to take them back. I recorded the first video on a whim. No makeup, no script, just me, holding the camera with hands that still shook sometimes. "I used to believe that love looked like sacrifice," I said into the lens. "That being a good daughter meant being small enough to fit inside someone else's vision of me." I looked away, then back. But it's not true. Love doesn't ask you to disappear, and family, real family, doesn't make you prove your loyalty by surrendering your joy. I posted the video and closed the laptop. The next morning the sun came in through the east-facing window, spilling over the floor like spilled honey. And for once, it felt like it was mine. That same day, I received a letter in the mail. Real mail, not digital. The envelope was simple, no gold embossing, just a name written in a familiar, careful hand. Aubrey. Inside a card. No apology, no excuses, just one sentence. "I don't understand what you did, but I think I'm starting to understand why." I read it 3 times. It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't reconciliation, it wasn't a bridge rebuilt, but maybe it was the first brick. I tucked the letter into a drawer. Not to forget, not to dwell, just to remember that even endings can leave room for something unexpected. Later that night, Dean and I stood in what would one day be the new kitchen. He kissed me like he wasn't afraid of the mess, the cracks, the work ahead. "You sure you're ready to start over?" he asked. I thought of the house, the fight, the loss, and smiled. "I'm not starting over," I said. "I'm starting true." How did this story make you feel, and which part resonated with you the most? If you love this journey, comment 100 below. Tell us, what country are you watching from? And if this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for being here with Life Stories.